Hello, this is Jan Moré, and welcome to Greet the Week. Also, I have here my co-host, Mona Duncan.
Hey, Jan.
Hello,
And
good to
everyone
see you
else.
today, and everyone else who's joining us. And then we have Bob Hoagland, who is been a very regular guest of ours on our show here. So thanks for joining. We do have another guest, and I will not introduce that person unless that person wants to be recognized. So today I thought we'd talk about negativity and how to deal with it. Because I don't know about you, I'm on Facebook a fair amount because I have a Facebook page for my business and a Facebook group. And so so after I'm done with all that stuff, I'm in there and I see so many negative comments coming through. And anything that seems to happen in the news, you see all the negativity. And I just get tired of looking at it. So I just thought I'd talk about, to make sure people understand what having those negative thoughts do to you. Because, Dr. Glasser talked about it when he talked about total behavior, where you've got the car with the four wheels, and the two wheels in front is the way you think and what you do. And those are the ones that you have pretty much control over, and the ones in the back are how you feel and your physiology. And at first when I learned about that, I'm like, physiology, well, how can what I do affect and how I'm thinking, what I'm thinking, how does it affect my physiology? But there is a lot of science now that is proving that if you are sitting in all this negativity, having all these negative thoughts, that it can cause a lot of stress. And it can cause things like high blood pressure. It can cause diabetes. It can cause all kinds of things. So I'd like to talk about that as well today. So any other comments? So true. Yes. It's you don't really realize how much that does affect you. And I've seen that in clients as well. These ones that worry a lot and seem to be very unhappy, they're sick a lot, and it's really amazing how that works.
Yeah, and all of this stuff does affect us. Dr. Billy Graham passed away just recently.
Mm-hmm.
And his funeral this week, they had several people speaking, and one of the children spoke and was talking about how that, whenever you read all the news and just life in general, interacting with people toward the negative and so forth, that sometimes you just wonder, well, there's just no hope.
Right.
And yet Dr. Graham, spoke to and talked with millions, maybe even billions of people, from the higher echelons, presidents, vice presidents, kings, and down to the plain old ordinary people. And it was looking at the fact that there is hope, but that hope is in, it's in God, or it is in the mysteries of this universe. It is in the fact that, it rains on the just and the unjust. It's the fact that the good and the bad is all together. And it's how we look at it and how we see it and how we there is hope, and we just need to look for it and find it. And the same thought that may be negative, that may be a worry, if we could turn it into either a prayer or just turn it into well wishes for someone.
Mm-hmm.
Those things travel on these unseen vibrations of the world, of the universe.
Yeah. And I found talk about the vibrations and the energy levels. I was reading into this quite a bit some time ago, about the different energy levels, where the highest energy levels is appreciation and love and all these real strong positive emotions, and the ones at the very bottom are depression and grief and despair. And so it's, how do we move ourselves up that energy level? Because I'm sure you've all done it, where you've walked into a room where a couple people have been in the middle of a heated argument, and you walk in there and you feel that tension, even though you didn't hear any of the argument. You feel that tension. and
It's palpable. It's palpable. I mean, it is. It's contagious.
It is. It is. Or even when you go to a store or call a store on the phone, and the person is rude answering the phone, and you'll say, so what do you need? Why are you calling this number? And when they talk like that, you just feel horrible. You don't want to talk to them. They're not going to help you out. And it it is contagious. It brings you down as well. Whereas if you go to the store and somebody greets you with a smile and asking how things are going, and you have a real friendly exchange, it's a lot more pleasant. And then you feel good. It can lift your mood. I kind of do that when I go to the grocery store, just out of fun. When I'm checking out, I'll strike up a conversation with the cashier and just start talking, and it's amazing. Sometimes they look at you like, why are you talking to me? I'm just doing my job. And then after a while, they kind of warm up a little bit, and maybe they'll laugh a little or say something. And it's I'm kind of doing my own experimentation. What kind of response I get.
It's building that relationship with.
Yeah.
That whenever those things happen, whether it's going into the room that's negative, or the cashier that is just doing her job, or on the phone while they're doing their job.
Right.
It's if when our automatic pilot goes to that negative, then we need to push the reset button or push the pause button so that we personally can get into a better mind frame. Yeah. Because it starts with us. We're always influenced and we're always influencing. But do we want to keep that negativity going? And if we don't, then we need to press our pause button so we cannot be negative in saying, well, why can't you just put that phone down and help me?
Right.
And I was at a store one day, and the girl was on the phone and, was taking care of that. And I asked her, as politely as I knew how, I said, do you mind to put the phone down and take care of me?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And so, she told her, she said, well, I got to hang up. I got a customer. And I asked her, I said, does your boss know that you're talking on the phone while you're taking care of customers? And she said, what are you trying to do, get me fired? And I said, honey, I hate to tell you this, but you don't need my help. What you're doing, will definitely contribute toward your not being promoted.
Yeah.
And so as we can begin to look at and press that pause button and rethink. The only person I can change, do anything about is me. And so I'm going to detach from all these negative vibes, even though they're crowding in on. I'm not going to, it's like wearing that bulletproof vest. I may be hit, but it's not going to penetrate.
Yeah.
And so it's rethinking that. And then the thing of it is that whenever we get to where we are already thinking that dissing remark or that anger remark, we have already begun to mix up the chemicals in our brain that is bringing on that cortisol.
Right.
That control, that deal with the stress by trying to be more forceful than they are. And so if we can just think about that and instead tap into that dopamine, that gives us a chance to breathe. And it's because we have this chemical lab in our brain.
Question.
Go ahead.
I don't think that there are many people who would ever disagree with anything that's been discussed so far. The difficult part is how, when you recognize it, do you change that thought? I mean, it's easy to say change it, but when you're in the moment, what are some strategies that people might use?
Well, I think the first thing is to be aware that you're angry, and then to stop and say, okay, what that pause button?
that pause.
What is behind my anger here? Why am I doing this? Do I choose to continue to be angry, or do I act a little differently? Because I do that at home every once in a while. Some family member will say something, and it just that anger goes up, and I'm like, so why am I angry at this person? I can be rude to this person, but I choose not to. I physically have to stop myself and say, okay, no, I'm annoyed, but I don't have to let this person know that I'm annoyed. But it does take practice. You can't just flip a switch. Starting today, right now, I'm not going to get angry. I'm not going to talk back, because that doesn't happen that way.
I won't name names, but there's a particular person in the Glasser Institute that I used to talk to at board meetings all the time. And because it's at certain levels, you can't necessarily just talk to everybody and say everything that you're thinking. So sometimes I'd be on the plane going over to Los Angeles or something, and I'd say, I'm not going to go negative in this conversation. I'm going to stay positive. I'm not going to, whatever. And sometimes it was less than 10 minutes and I would be going negative.
Yeah.
And even when you go into it, now I would catch myself.
Right.
But even with my level of knowledge of choice theory and my understanding of all of that, it was still a difficult situation. And I see that one of the comments of, how do I want to feel, or what do I want to think about myself at the end of the encounter is, that's a great question.
Yeah. Yeah. How do I want to feel at the end of the encounter? And how important is this relationship? Do I want to hurt this relationship, or is it important to me that I just don't want to go there?
Right. And I think part of the problem is and in some ways we're getting into the planning too, or the strategies, but did you hear, and I'm really aware of what I said, I would go there and say, I'm not going to be negative. Mm-hmm. I didn't say what I was going to do instead. I didn't say I had a goal in mind, or the relationship, as you said, or any of that. It was just, I'm not going to. Where if I say, if somebody goes negative, I'm going to, or what kind of a person do I want to be, all of those things.
Exactly.
I have a much better chance.
In one of the runners things was talking about, set your target date, when will you quit? When will you quit? Is it whenever you're thirsty, whenever you're tired, whenever you have a blister? If you don't tell yourself when you're going to quit, then the least little thing that comes up, you will quit. And so when things do go that way, what's going to be, and how am I going to press forward lovingly and kindly? Or more importantly, how can I lovingly observe without judgment?
That's a tough one too.
And that just sends it out. And it's being aware. It is being more conscious. And it's thinking about, well, what are you talking about? Be conscious. I'm awake. I'm here. I'm seeing. I'm hearing. But yet there's so many things going on that we are not conscious of, because it's just in the atmosphere. It's just, we just cannot be aware of all the nuances that are propelling and driving all of us.
But the more we pay attention to them, the more we are aware of them, and the more we're able to change how we respond to them.
Respond to them. Yeah. And rather than judging the other person.
Yeah.
Because.
Go ahead, Mona, I'm sorry.
Well, I just think my aunt used to always say, a person convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. And so going in there, this just never works. It never works.
No.
It just feeds as well. It may work, but it feeds. It's what it does. It adds to. It just piles on. And I don't want to be a pile of honor.
Right.
And I keep thinking of, we talk about individual incidences and how do I want to be at the end of this encounter, whatever, what kind of a person do I want to be? But I also think about the times when I know that other people have, for 3 or 4 or 5 days, have just been in kind of a funk, and we just feel negative about things, or at least there's zero positive in our heads, or very little. And we almost get to the point where, I know I've said sometimes, well, I don't want to be nice right now.
Right.
And I don't want to handle this. Or the person
don't get me out of this mood.
And to go back to your comment initially, Jen, from the Facebook stuff. sometimes I'll read the rude stuff and my first thought is to be rude back. And I know that's not how I am.
Right. Right.
And I override it. But I think that sometimes we make it sound so simple when we say, well, it's a choice rather than like you said, I think both of you said it, you have to work at it.
Yeah.
Being aware of it.
Yeah. And I think that's the part that we don't let people know enough of, because we do talk about it being a choice a lot, and people go, but it's not. Then they keep arguing with you, it's not a choice. And so it's like, but it's not an easy choice.
Right.
And sometimes we do want to be miserable. We are angry and we want to stay in that anger state. But then, go ahead.
But we can radicalize ourselves by what we think about whenever we're not in those confrontational moments, by what we think about when we're just alone doing our own work, whatever. So we can radicalize ourselves, but we can also heal ourselves.
Yeah.
The thing of it is I cannot heal myself until you're healed, and you can't heal you until I'm healed. And then the more we are individually healed, the more it can send out those vibes that, because in the whole is everything.
Yeah.
It's just what the mix is. And if it's too much of something, it's poison. If it's too much of something, it's too sweet.
We were, before anyone else was on the line, Jan and I had like just a minute or so. And I was saying that I've stopped watching the news.
Oh, yeah.
And after a little while, I was in a much better mood overall because I just got tired of the arguing.
Right. And so we can cut off the Facebooks.
We can.
Right.
Cut it off.
Yeah.
It's a deliberate action for us to do that and say, okay, I don't like what I'm seeing. Why am I stuck here reading this stuff? I mean, let me just turn it off.
Right.
Get out of it.
And yet at the same time, I can be in moods other times where I can read something and really kind of attempt to, or really get the message underneath the anger or the frustration. It comes back to how am I perceiving my life at the time.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because you can not let the anger affect you and say, okay, I'm gonna read through the anger. I'm just this person is angry, and so, but let me not focus on the anger. Let's focus on the message.
Right. And it's not so much a change in the circumstances as a whole as much as it is a change in me.
Oh, yeah.
Is that change begins in me, then because we are influencers and because we are influenced, we will have, influence on others. And we say, is anybody watching what I do? Well, only everyone.
I was thinking too, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, and there was a person who had a difference of opinion than me, in some political stuff. But we sat there calmly and talked about it, and it was really almost an enjoyable conversation, even though we disagreed, because there was nothing but listening to each other and the respect that goes with that, and in essence, a willingness to at least listen and consider another point.
Exactly. Just be willing to hear and consider it.
Yeah, I've run across that, and I've talked about this before about, being, my first career was in the engineering world, and I was a female in a male-dominated world. And as the only woman, you get a lot of jokes, you get a lot of inappropriate remarks, you get a lot of that stuff. But instead of focusing on the stuff that was going on, I just tried to let that go and say, okay, I'm here to do a job. I'm going to try to do the best job I can. And if you don't want to accept me, then that's your problem, not mine. And I'm not going to allow you to keep me from doing a good job. But like Bob was saying, I treated everybody respectfully. I didn't complain to them. I didn't fuss at them. I didn't, go threaten to go to HR or anything like that. We worked it out. We negotiated our differences, and we worked it out, and it worked quite well for me. But a lot of times right now, what we see is people jumping to, all of a sudden, I don't like what you're saying, get out of here, then I'm going to criticize you, and I'm going to tell everybody what a horrible person you are, and that doesn't get us anywhere.
And the thing of it is, if news is one of the things that, helps to radicalize, there is a website called allsides.com. And it is absolutely fantastic. If you'll, to go to it with an open mind, because they have, even news medias I've never heard of before. They'll have like the middle ground, the opposite of one direction and the opposite of the other direction.
Yeah.
And they bring in all of these viewpoints, and it can really help you if you're just reading it rather than getting the emotion behind what the person is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can read it in a little calmer method and begin to see those sometimes it's not the issue that we're so much again, it's the rotten personality of the person that's saying it that we don't like. And because of that, we have a tendency to just go with them where we're coming from. And so it is being willing to listen to and to hear and to think about, rather than automatically say no, or automatically to agree.
Right.
To listen to.
To listen, that's very important, to listen. Listen for understanding. Yeah. But one of the things that I wanted to bring up today is the real medical explanation behind the anger piece. We talked about anger being bad for our health, and I'm not sure if any of you are aware of the work of Bruce Lipton in his book, The Biology of Belief, and he's a biologist. And Mona, you talked about cortisol earlier. When you're angry and when you're upset, you release these negative hormones. And in our bodies, our cells are constantly reproducing. Every so many hours, the cells are reproducing. And so if you have cortisol in your body, it's the environment is not good for reproduction. And that's how you get malignancies, and that's how you get different illnesses, is because your body isn't healthy. If you're not sleeping well at night, and your body's not able to repair itself, because you're so upset, because you're so angry, or you're so worried or something. So all of those negative emotions, it is bad things physiologically for you. Whereas if you're happier, if you've got people in your life where you've got good relationship with, and you're getting more of the dopamine, and you're getting more of the oxytocin and getting those good hormones that are going around in your body, then it's a much better environment. So when we talk about the environment helping to make things better, or they are result in things getting worse, it's also the environment that we're creating inside our body. So the question to ask is, do you really want to stay in that negative, angry, worried, anxious mental state where it is actually creating harm in your body and causing you to be more sick and have more illnesses and more chronic illnesses and stuff? So that right there to me is a great reason to go into let's be more positive. Let's find the positive things in what's going on. Let's take a moment to determine what we're grateful for, what is going well in my life, and what I can be happy about. And
those things that aren't going so well can be the greatest lessons that rubs off that scab, or that whatever that's keeping us from being our very best.
And that's what I've started teaching myself to do when something doesn't happen quite right. Okay, all right, what am I supposed to learn from this? And how can I keep this from happening again? And so that's one more piece of experience. I can say, okay, I learned that, I've experienced this, and I know next time I don't want to go there. And so let's or this experience has made me stronger and help me out, or help me to really appreciate what I do have, what is going well.
And with Bruce Lipton, looking at how that microscopic was a part of the whole, that in that one little world, and that it will become whatever it's exposed to.
It will, yeah.
It will. It will become, it will become whatever it's exposed to. It will take on and become. I was reading the other day about this person that was in a car accident, and their face was really messed up, and the nose was broken. And anyway, they took a portion of the ear to make the ligament, the cartilage that goes in the nose.
Mm-hmm.
And once a year, took part of this little cartilage that goes in the ear to make the cartilage that goes in the nose. And about every 2 or 3 years, this person has to go back to the doctor because the nose cartilage begins to want to curve like the ear.
Oh, really?
And often we go back to those initial wounds, and when they're not healed and when they're not sculpted, and we want to go back to those. We go back to those. We go back to those, and it just becomes our whole being until we're aware of that, and we continually have to go back and self-operate, or go to a counselor, or go to.
Unfortunately, we just can't make a big change at one time and just say, okay, now my work is done and everything's going to be perfect from now on. You got to keep going, but keep evaluating, keep saying, am I still headed in the right direction? Is this still the way I want it to be? And what else can I do? And how can I make it better and keep going?
Yeah. And we do heal ourselves, but not in isolation.
Mm-mm.
We need others.
We
need others to notice the healing and also to notice the non-healing. And unfortunately, sometimes to point it out to get
That's
that.
Right.
But it's being open to that.
Yeah.
Being open to that.
There's also something to, and you both have hit on it, and I'm not sure exactly how I want to say this, but there's something to being okay with your progress. And it's like you said, Jen, you can't just, change everything overnight and I'm done with the work. So yes, I did better in this situation today. It's not where I want to be, but I can give myself credit for that and know that as I continue, there's some of that hope that you were talking about earlier as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it's going back to, do you ever beat yourself up for something you said or did?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's the same thing, just in reverse. Begin to notice whenever you're making those little baby steps, when you're making those little instances that you held your tongue longer than you had previously,
Right.
And you said it in a kinder way than you did before. When you begin to notice those and hang on to them and give yourself an atta girl, give yourself an atta boy. So it's only as we you see, we're always tearing ourselves down, but we rarely ever commend ourselves.
Yeah. And that
And
takes
how do you know if you don't commend yourself? Again, it goes back, can you receive a compliment?
Yeah.
If you have trouble with that, you're probably going to have trouble with any, because in the whole is the one. If it wasn't whole, it wouldn't be all of it together. And I mean, to me, it's just so simple to see that. I'm thinking of the astronaut that was, or the person that was looking at the sky. And, oh, wow, there's no way that there can be a divine source that cares anything about me. I'm just about like an ant in comparison to all of these planets and universe and stars and everything. And a friend of his said, who was kind of like a Bruce Lipton, but was in the microscope. He took a little teaspoon of water, just water that was in a mud puddle, and put it on a microscope and looked in it. And that universe there in that microscopic level was so expansive and was so complex.
Yeah, that by relation.
But the thing of it is, if it wasn't whole, W-H-O-L-E, whole,
yeah,
if it wasn't whole, then it wouldn't have both the negative and the positive. And they're both for a purpose. Where does medicine come from? Mold, venom, from snakes. But it's in a right portion, not in the too much portion. And it's evaluating is, well, was the attitude okay? Did I give too much information? Was it not enough information? Not only what am I doing, but in what increments am I doing it? and self-evaluating.
Yeah. And not to beat yourself up for it, and say, okay, if I didn't give enough information, I can always come back later and give more. If I gave too much, I can always come back later and do damage control or do something else about it. Just because the incident is over doesn't mean that you can't revisit it and do something to grow from it or build on it.
But if you can't, at least be aware of it.
Yeah.
Because cycles, okay? It's cyclical. We'll have a chance to get, maybe not that person, but it'll happen again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's being ready for it and seeing it sooner and stopping it quicker.
Yeah, right. That's the hard part.
That's the awareness. That's the consciousness. That's the mindfulness.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes we're aware of it, but we still don't stop it because we don't have the confidence in ourselves to stop it, or that it's something that we should stop.
Right. And in that mindfulness, there, well, I mean, just right now, look out the window or pick up a magazine and look at and just looking at that, what are you seeing? What all are you seeing? And actually name it. What are you hearing? Listen, what can you hear? Can you hear the silence? Can you hear something from another room? What are you feeling? Can you feel your clothes touching you? And it's kind of a microscopic way. What about smelling? Well, if you're seeing something, can you imagine the smell that would come from it? And you're beginning to be mindful, and you're bringing it down to the macro, down to the moment. And as we become more and more aware of this, we can expand it to other situations, to being aware, to being conscious of, and to using these mighty, wonderful senses that we've been given, which is how we learn.
Yeah, yeah, and to be aware instead of just reacting.
Exactly.
To learn to say, okay, I'm not going to be. I like to call it being in a pinball machine where I'm the pinball, and I've got somebody else operating the flippers, and they're just bouncing me off all the little bumpers in there, and I've got no control over it. I'm just reacting to everything that's going on in my life, and so I need to take control. I need to figure out a way to so that I can decide which direction I'm going to go. I decide how I respond to something.
And if that pinball that's in there, which is you, which is me, which is us being pinged around by all these outward circumstances, because we can heal ourselves, if I was to wrap myself up in the Nerf stuff.
Okay, yep.
So that I was wrapped up in Nerf, even though I'm hitting those things that they're punching me toward, is it going to be less damaging?
Right. I hadn't thought of that part of it. That's good. So you're protecting yourself.
Yeah, so protect yourself.
Yeah.
In a way that's still, making the contact with whatever it needs to make contact with.
But it's not affecting you as negative as it had before.
Yeah. And see, what happens is we're taking the energy out of that sting.
Yeah.
And so that Nerf-covered, hardened pinball, it's going to hit it a little less. And even though it is those, it's hitting it a little less. It's hitting it a little less. And not only is it healing me, but it's healing others also.
All right. Well, we're out of time for today. And thank you for everybody for your comments. And so we will see you next Monday. Again, it's 1:00 Central Time. And I'll be posting the link on the Sunbelt and other Facebook pages.